This is the one then. I'm surprised. A little bit ganglier and dirtier than I would have expected. Ah, well. Do you know why you're here in my tent? Indeed. But it seems that you might not realize the full extent of exactly what's happening right now. Allow me to enlighten you. Earlier tonight, you were trying to enjoy yourself at a local tavern. A rather expensive one, as I hear it. Which, of course, is part of the reason that I'm so surprised that you look the way that you do. Ah, I see. Such a shame for you to scrimp and save to spend a single night in luxury, only for all this bad fortune to befall you. Anyway, let's see. As I hear it, the tavern had a second floor, which is where you were. And, as it happened, it was also where my servant Garrick was. Yes, that's right. You see, I am a Dynax. Something similar to what you would call a noble here in this land. I come from far to the west, bearing gifts for your small nation. I allowed most of my personal servants to go out and enjoy whatever pleasures this land can offer. And Garrick, unfortunately, chose the exact same tavern at the table right next to you. As I was told, some sort of disagreement broke out between the two of you. I don't know what it was about or who was the instigator, but that doesn't really matter to me anyway. He pushed you and you shoved him back, and I'm sure you weren't expecting him to reel back as far as he did, and he went right over the balcony. Normally, I'm told it wouldn't have been a fatal fall, but it seems he fell right on his head, and alcohol being involved as it was, it turns out he did not survive after all. And once my guards learned of it, they found you and brought you straight to me. I'm afraid that killing the servants of a Dynax is a grave offense. In this land, a servant may be a lowly position, but in my land, a Dynax's personal servant is considered a high-ranking official. I'm sure by now that you must realize what a precarious position you're now in. Intentionally or not, you just caused the death of a visiting foreign dignitary. That's not the sort of thing that can simply be forgotten. According to your own laws, such an act is punishable by death. However, given as it was my servant, I'm in a position to punish you according to my own laws instead. In my land, when someone is killed, the traditional punishment is, as we call it, is for the killer to become the victim's life proxy. A life proxy must see to it that whatever the victim wanted to do in life is completed. And as my servant, naturally, Garrick's life work was to execute my will. In other words, you can avoid an execution, but only if you take his place as my servant. Of course, a life proxy doesn't gain any of the perks or benefits of the role, only the responsibilities. I'm afraid that there's simply no way around it. Garrick had a family, you know, not to mention friends and people who respected them. They will expect the Dynax, myself, to do something about this. How am I ever to explain to them that not only has Garrick's life ended, but their legacy as well, when I could have done something about it? I know your king certainly won't lift a finger to defend you. Rather, I believe him the type who would order your execution immediately, unless I were to stop him. This country of yours is small and bullied by your larger neighbors. Without the contributions I have been offering, you would have lost your independence long ago. He would do anything to remain in my favor. I know it must seem criminally unfair to be forced to make such a choice over a simple accident. And you would be right, it is. But when fate casts the die, you cannot change the result. You seem overwhelmed. I cannot blame you for that. Gods, leave us. Give me some time alone with this poor, wretched soul. I know that you must feel as though your life has ended, but this might actually be an opportunity. Now, bear with me for a moment, and I will explain. Among my people there is a well-known story of how a Dynax's servant helped their master to ascend to the rank of High Dynax, the ruler of all people. As it happens, that servant was a life proxy, just like you, and also like you. They were from a foreign country. Quite a coincidence, isn't it? And where most would curse their fate, this servant instead devoted themselves to their new role, and once they came to revere their Dynax, they worked even harder. The story is long, and I'll spare you all of their various exploits, but suffice to say, that servant lifted their master to High Dynax, almost single-handedly, and that High Dynax became the greatest in our nation's history. Now, I'm not telling you all this to inspire you, nor am I trying to imply be happy and carefree about this drastic change in your life. No, the point of telling you this is much more pragmatic. You see, I have aspirations. I wish to become High Dynax. And to do that, I need the current High Dynax to recognize me as her successor. Currently, some other Dynax is next in line, but that can change at any time. And as it happens, my people are strong believers in omens. It's not uncommon for a High Dynax to be chosen based on a similarity to one of our past rulers. Though, naturally, they must also be a competent leader. Perhaps now you realize what I'm saying. Purely by chance, I now have a link to my people's most beloved High Dynax. If you were to further the connection by appearing to be just as diligent and hard-working as the servant of legend, then my place as High Dynax would be all but guaranteed. And naturally, the better things go for me, the better things go for you. Being a life proxy means you'll have to start off with little in the way of amenities, but if you can prove to everyone that you deserve them, you can gradually earn all the luxuries that a High Dynax servant deserves. Land, riches, and more. In particular, there's one thing I think you might be particularly interested in. You see, there's a very good reason I've been bringing gifts to your kingdom. I want to demonstrate that I can help provide for its needs. My hope, once I become High Dynax, is to make your little nation a tributary of mine. The beginnings of an empire, in fact. Oh, no, no, no. You misunderstand. Poor thing. You must be so used to being intimidated by the stronger, more military-minded nations that surround you that you don't realize that diplomacy can be peaceful. I'm not going to march in with an army and conquer your homeland. Rather, I plan to offer a deal. In exchange for the ability to direct your country's affairs and share in its profits, I plan to offer my nation's considerable resources to enrich it. Your home would blossom into the jewel of my new empire, protected by my armies and able to use my wealth to develop it until it becomes quite productive. And the best part is, I would like you to rule it. As a native to this country, but also as my servant, you would be the perfect intermediary. You don't need to know anything about ruling a country. An advisor could handle all the day-to-day decisions, but you would have the authority to approve or forbid whatever you liked, and ensure that your homeland is treated fairly. Keeping in mind, of course, that all of this is only an offer. You must be my servant, assuming you wish to keep your head, but if you are too intimidated by such grand aspirations, then I can keep your tasks simple if dull. If you are to aid me in my ambitions, then I must be certain you are fully dedicated to it. Naturally, this is a large and important decision, and you needn't give me an answer immediately. You may use the next week until it is time for us to return to my home to ponder your decision. Oh, and one other thing you may wish to consider. In the story I told you about, the legendary servant was something similar to what you would call a concubine to their high Dynax. It's not strictly necessary for you to take up that role for the plan to work, but it would help. Something to keep in mind is all. For the time being, you may speak to the guards outside the tent, and they will escort you to your new quarters. They won't be luxurious by any means, but they will have the necessities. I look forward to your decision, my new servant.